recapping my trade on Aphria Inc. with ticker symbol APHA or APHA. What I knew of this company in December, it had merged with Tilray to be the largest marijuana company in the world, revenue-wise. And I had played it in December. It was a good play, and I decided to hop back in after looking at the charts, January 25th. So let's see what I did. I had bought in pre-market. It was up pre-market, so I decided to jump in. I bought 5 shares at $13. And I apologize for the quality of these pictures. I'm out and about a lot, so I trade on my phone a lot, and I took some screenshots. So I do have the opportunity to look at my phone, and I take some screenshots just to be able to recap. So let's keep going. The daily chart looked good from that red bar. It had just touched my 10 moving average on the daily chart. So I figured that it was just going to go up from there. If you can see, that blue box is where pre-market was. I thought it was going to go up. Ended up dropping a lot that day. So I was just letting it drop. This is all through the 25th. And I was trying to let it find a bottom, decided I was going to average down from there. So that's the next day. So I look between my 2-minute chart and my 5-minute chart sometimes, because the 2-minute chart is good to see quicker movements. And sometimes if I want a more compressed chart, I'll look at the 5-minute chart. So I switch between the two. And closer to the second half of the day on the 26th, it had popped up over me, so I wasn't going to buy anymore. I tend to average down, not up. Let's see what happens. 2-minute chart a few minutes later from that previous slide, and also still 2-minute chart rising above me. I'm happy with that. This is where I ended on the 26th. Had 5 shares, and I was $2.35 under. Was trying to buy some as it was coming down on pre-market, and let me see if I bought any. I only ended up buying 1, so then it averaged down. So now I was holding 6 at 12.94 essentially. On that day after I had bought 1, started rising above me. Looks good. Let's move on. So that day stayed above me, looking at these charts, and then right around 345 started to drop up below. But looking at that 200 moving average, that gold line on the 5-minute chart, I figured it was going to come down, touch it, and then pop back up. Let's see what happened. I'm looking at the daily chart here just to see where it's looking at, and it looks like it's consolidating. And that 5-minute chart did rise slightly above that 200 moving average, but then did a big drop. So this is the next day on the 28th. It looks like it popped above me now. And it did. So this is now the 5-minute chart and stayed above me. On the next day, so this is me looking at the daily chart, prepping for the next day, and the day previous, it looks like it has a little acorn for me. So let's see what happened on the 29th. 29th, it dropped below the 200 moving average on the 2-minute, but then it had big movement right around 11 o'clock. That's usually right before lunch for these market makers. So it looks like on this big movement, just touched my position. And now I'm sitting at 11 shares. So I had averaged it down slightly right before, I believe. So that brought me down to 12.75. And popped over that 200 On the 2 minute, usually it goes for a run. That's what I've come to expect. Once it pops over that 200 moving average, it goes for a little run. Let's see what happened. So this is the 5 minute chart displaying the same thing, and also popped over slightly over that 200 moving average on the 5 minute. So I waited until next week, that following week, so the 29th on that previous slide. This is the Friday. So I waited to sell because I wanted to get a little bit more profits. So this is my daily chart on that following Tuesday. So that's the February 2nd. And if you see here, I'm looking for an exit. So on the days that are close to where this daily bar was, it looked like that resistance level was at around $14. So I wanted to get out around that part. So I wasn't sure it was going to pop over the $14 mark. So I was looking for an exit at that point. At this point, holding 15 shares now. I had averaged down on the 29th. So that Friday, I bought a few more shares just to bring me down a little bit more. I wanted to stay safe under this 5 moving average on the daily chart. So that's where I was looking for that exit now. And let's see, this was that Tuesday. So I was still figuring out which placement I wanted to find my exit. So 2 minute and the 5 minute chart side by side, same time, but a little bit more condensed on that 5 minute chart. And still above me, so I was happy with that. I was still riding along that 13 moving average, so that yellowish gold line that's squished in between the blue and the purple, and hadn't fallen, so I was still happy with it. Looking at the daily chart, jumping back and forth just to see where that line of resistance is. So that dotted green line is approaching that $14 mark. So I wanted to see where my resistance was. And it just kept going, went up to 1381 as the high so far here midday of the 2nd on February, and was approaching that $14 mark. So it hit 1420, and then it started to drop a little bit on the 5 minute mark. So let's see if I start to decide that I want to sell. Pop back up. So went down, touched the 13 moving average, and then pop back up. Usually I use these as my lines of support and resistance because I don't have any fancy programs that allow me to see any resistance that I can add in there. So I use these just to kind of give myself an idea of where I know it's going to drop to. And if it drops below that, that usually is a good sign that I should get out. So let's see what happened. Let's see. This, I believe, was the end of the day. End of the day, it started to drop. And it started to drop below that 20 moving average. So that's where I start to wonder if I should get out. But it looks like on the 5 minute mark, it didn't drop too far below that 20, and I just kind of let it go a little bit. It looks like it started a green candle. So I felt fairly safe. And on that 2 minute chart, it looked like the 200 moving average, that little golden bar right there, that little golden line, was above my position. So I felt comfortable staying in for a little bit longer. And on this daily chart, yes, did pop over that $14 mark. So I was pretty good. I was pretty happy. Wasn't sure what was going to happen the next day. So looking back at that daily chart, I was wondering if it was too far from the moving averages. So that's where, I'm not sure what this slide is. Let's see. On the 2 minute chart, I had looked back on the 2 minute chart and started developing a little green candle and was going up. after hours. Is this after hours? No, this is getting close to after hours. So let's jump back. So at this point, the green bar on the daily chart was above those lines of resistance on those previous days. So I felt pretty good. It looked like it was clear skies. The high of the day that day was 1421, so I had cleared everything. So now I was trying to figure out where I want to exit. I wasn't quite sure because I wanted to maximize my profits, but also not let it get too extended that it was going to drop too quickly. So let's see what happened. On the 2-minute chart, it started to drop. Looking now at that purple line, my 20 moving average, it's starting to curve back down. So this is where I am starting to look for an exit. I let it ride out a little bit longer. Now this is the 5-minute chart, and it looks like those lines squished together. It was starting to fan out again. So letting it go, and popped over to 1440, which I was happy about, and start to consolidate. 5-minute chart again, and towards the end of the day, it looked like it was going for a little bit of run. So let's see what we got. On my daily chart again, it hit 1469 so far. Let's see what we're looking at. End of the day, 1486. And looks like by the end of the day, 1496. And this is the close of the day. So it was starting to keep going, and I was happy with that. I'm still holding after hours on the 2nd. And I, again, am looking for my exit at this point because I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen the next day. I wanted to play it a little bit safe. Hit 1535 after hours. And so on the daily chart, I just put it at $15. I figured it was after hours. It had hit that dollar mark, wasn't quite sure. So I hit that $15 mark, wasn't quite sure if it was going to hold it. So I did put my sell after hours on the 2nd for 15 at $15. So I want to sell all of them. Not sure why I'm still holding that one position there after I sold. So let's see what happened. I think I'm not sure why I'm holding that, but as a recap, I did have 15, looks like I had 15 shares at $12.68 as an average, and I sold them at $15. So watch this for about 6 days, got a total profit of $34.80. So again, I have a small account. I play it fairly safe. And I always look back then the next day or the next few days to see if it was a good play. And let's see what happened. So this is the daily chart the next day. Yeah, I should have let it run a little bit longer, but I wasn't quite sure where it was going. So I felt good getting those profits. Yeah, I missed out on a few profits, but what would I do differently? I would let it run a little bit more, still following my moving averages to kind of decide where I want to exit before I actually just decide on an exit. I put it at the dollar mark because typically it finds a resistance at the dollar mark, but obviously this one didn't. So yeah, that's what I would do differently. I would watch it a little bit longer just to see if it was going to go. And if after hours it was still rising, that would have felt comfortable holding it. So let's see if I take these lessons into my future trades. Thanks for watching.